So
hey, that's fine. That's
she
fine.
gets what she wants. I don't care if it is Father's Day.
My cat Mumford has been immortalized in the podcasting stream. So even though she's not here now, she will live on forever on the internet. All right.
So are we set on our topics? How are we going to do this tonight?
Well,
we're gonna have to start with Aaron talking about Guardians.
Yeah, I just saw Guardians, so we'll talk about that, and then Daniel, I know you had some questions about the list. I think this list, because obviously none of us have played all of this, but I was talking to Andrew this morning, and I like we talked about what their criteria was, because they didn't really say what their criteria was. There's some games on there that may not qualify if there was some sort of criteria to this. What era was the best, stuff like that. I think we can. And Daniel, I think you had some questions, but I changed my phone. I lost all those messages because I accidentally backed it up to September 2016. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Way to go, Editor-in-Chief.
Okay.
So how was Guardians? What do you think?
Yeah, we'll go ahead and start the episode. We can welcome to episode number 44 of the Monsters of Geek podcast. With me today, we have our prestigious panel. We have Andrew, we have Daniel, and Joe on the panel today. I've already taken the money out of Jared's paycheck because he is not here today. So he has been informed that his pay will be shorter than usual, which is negatives. So topics today we're going to look at, we're obviously going to finally deliver the RPG discussion on this list that we've been teasing for, 3 weeks or so. And Andrew was like, all this time, we still don't have everybody here that we we did. So as far as, I'm sure Jared will come on next week and we'll talk about it. He's actually pretty remorseful about it, so I won't give him a break this time.
I guess it's worth telling everybody that we've rescheduled this podcast at least 3 times because one person or another couldn't make it. So
right.
The fact that Jared's not here is very disappointing.
We have, it seems like every week, last couple of weeks has been, hey guys, we're going to reschedule this one. We're going to reschedule this one. We're going to reschedule this one. But funny thing is, so here's a story on him, and it made me laugh yesterday. He texted me yesterday. He was like, I'm just coming out of the gym, man. I'm going to get home, get the girls to bed. I might be a little bit late. And I said, dude, it's tomorrow, but I do applaud you. Now, if you want to get on and wait for us, I would applaud your dedication to the podcast. If you just wanted to hang out until we got there. And he said, dude, I totally forgot it was tomorrow. I thought it was today. So he was totally prepared to be on the podcast. He was just a day early. So,
Well, he should have waited. Maybe he could have been on it.
So yeah, well, before we kick off, obviously we're going to do some stuff as far as what we've been doing and whatnot. But the bulk of the conversation will be on the RPG list. But first, I just got back from seeing Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. We had some free passes from work, so we got the grandparents up here and they babysat it. Oh, before I forget, Happy Father's Day to Daniel and Jared. And this is my first Father's Day, and it has been awesome.
Congratulations.
So it's pretty sweet. And happy Father's Day to all the fathers that may be listening. So I hope you guys we're actually recording this on Father's Day, so it won't be Father's Day when you listen to it, but hope you guys had a great Father's Day. But anyway, so.
What about me?
Joe, we're not even getting into that discussion, okay? Daniel's a lawyer, but I don't know if he can get you out of all those. So went and saw Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. We had some free passes from work, and it's old enough now that our local theater, allows for passes. Though there was a new person there, so maybe they don't allow for passes. But she was new and was like, I guess you get in for free. I was like, yeah, awesome, we do. So we went and saw it. It was good, man. It was – Shauna walked out and basically said it was a little bit over the top for her in some spots. I thought it was really funny. The only thing that I felt was forced with it was the Drax comedy. I thought they did a lot of his comedy. I felt like even though some of it was funny, it was forced a little bit, and it didn't come off as – I guess the first one came off, a lot of stuff was off the cuff. Like it was just almost like they – it was almost like – I guess the comedic timing was a bit better in the first one. I felt like, especially in Drax's case, because Dave Bautista isn't the best actor. Like, he can be a big goofball and be loud and everything else, but he doesn't have the comedic timing of, say, like a Chris Pratt or even a Zoe Saldana. Because he just isn't that type of actor. So I thought that he was a little bit forced with some of his comedy, even though some of it was funny. And it did kind of play up to that kind of, for lack of a better term, I guess, kind of jock humor that Drax is kind of crafted for. So it fit the character. It just was a little bit more forced. I did think the character development was a lot better than this. I felt they took the time to really kind of, fill out Rocket's story and fill out, obviously, Star-Lord's, but his character was kind of filled out in the first one pretty good. The relationship between Gamora and what was the other girl's name? Nebula, I thought was really kind of a cool kind of, hey, we both hate Thanos, I'm gonna kill Thanos type of thing. Kind of go into their backstory a little bit. Even obviously Baby Groot was the best part of that movie, but I think every scene he was in was pretty cool. But I thought it was good all the way around. I know Shauna was she said it was good, but she thought there was some that they kind of the humor was a little bit more forced, like I thought in some instances, though. Some of the stuff, like one of the things she turned to me was when there's a scene, and there's no spoilers, but there's this gigantic gun that Gamora picks up and puts on her shoulder. And for me, that's comics. Like that's Marvel Cosmic. It's not the first time I've seen a very small person pick up a big gun and shoot it and control it and not be blown through, through the wall or anything. But she looked at him, she said, "Did she just really pick up that humongous gun?" And I said, "Yeah, darn right she did." And that was pretty much the end of the conversation. But yeah, I thought it was good. Andrew, I do agree it was nice to have even though it was a nice to have kind of a contained story, because Guardians was already tied in when they found the Infinity Gem, so you don't necessarily need to do anything else to tie them into the next movie. But I thought it was a cool contained story. I thought the story was kind of like I don't know if you're familiar with the Hitchcock term, but like a MacGuffin, just a vehicle to get to more of the character-driven stuff. I liked Yondu a lot more in this one than I did the other one. I liked the backstory they kind of gave him and why he was kicked out of the group he was in and everything else that was in there, and what they did with that character. Shauna didn't like there's this kind of an over-top kind of killing scene. Now, obviously, this is a PG-13 movie, so it's not gory or anything like that. But it's Yondu and Rocket Raccoon and Groot. I won't say because I actually really liked the scene. I thought it was pretty neat. But I thought that made Yondu like this really kind of awesome character as far as that goes. But it's good. I really enjoyed it. The first one's better because of some of the things I said, the comedic timing and stuff like that. I felt like it was a little bit more natural feeling. But I thought with this one, I thought James Gunn did a good job of kind of bringing the characters along at a pretty good clip, because I don't know when he'll get that chance again, considering that they're going to be in the big movie, and I don't know when Guardians 3 will come out. But I thought it was good. First one was better, but this one's still very much worth the ticket price to go see. So
have we all seen it?
No.
Okay.
Joe's the only one that hadn't.
Okay. What was your question, Daniel?
I was going to say I agree with you on Yondu. I thought they did a good job fleshing him out a little bit and giving him kind of like a purpose in the movie. I do think he's overpowered, though. They made him way too he's like basically. He's almost unkillable. He can kill anything, right?
Right. In a movie with basically, and this is I guess a spoiler, but with two very powerful beings in it, or what became two very powerful beings, Yondu. It's kind of like that. It's kind of like that fighter, like Marvel versus Capcom or a fighting game that everybody can kind of pick and win with. Yondu would be that guy. Exactly. He needs to be. He needs to be nerfed a little bit to make it a little bit fairer. But I thought it was pretty cool, and I think that's why no spoilers, but I think that's why his storyline in the movie went the way it did. Because I think the way they established it, I think they had to. I think he kind of boxed himself in a corner. So
yeah, I agree. The only thing that I told you all that I really enjoyed the movie. I think I might have liked it more than the first one. The villain in the movie, I thought had some over the top moments that I thought were kind of unnecessary. trying to think how to say it without spoiling it for anybody. I guess the explanation for what happened to Quill's mom, I thought was over the top and kind of unnecessary.
I thought it was a little bit lost for a second.
Yeah.
Like when he said it, and then once the movie about 10 minutes after, I was like, "Oh, okay, I guess that brings the exclamation full." But it was kind of weird. It was like, "Oh, I just kind of did this." I was like,
"Yeah, exactly." It just didn't. It didn't. The motivation for that just didn't make any sense, other than just to make him even
right, almost like make him a villain. Right? It's like he was already. I mean, he's basically a space hippie at this point. Once he kind of explained everything, I'm like, well, this guy's just like a 1970s space. It's like a 1970s dude that just so happens to be from space at this point. But I thought that
I didn't think it was that bad. Like, they even went and found an 80s song or whatever, 70s, 80s, whatever, to illustrate it even more. Like, well, I can't spoil it, but like, I mean, to me, they made it pretty obvious. Like, because and you all aren't the first people to say this, but to me it was like, or I saw a different article that said, why did he do this? And it's like, they told you. Like, the only thing that was bad about it, to me was that they actually bothered to take the song that was paralleled and have him explain it word for word. This is my life, and this is the chorus, and this is why I did what I did. And it's like, it would have been better if you just kind of played that in the background and let it been kind of ambiguous, maybe. That was my problem with it, but I thought it was obvious. I didn't have a problem with it. Well, I think it's surprising to me that you guys did.
I just think. Go ahead, Daniel.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just think that the way he just kind of blurts it out, like, I think that's the issue. Like, I feel like if he would have explained, because this isn't a spoiler, but like he explains why he went back to Earth, and then why what he blurted out makes sense. I feel like that line should have been done at the end of that. Like, it would, because all of a sudden he explained it, and then he talks to Peter about something. He's like, "Oh, that's why I did this," and I felt like the line was just a little bit like, it was like, I want to explain all this ... Oh yeah, and then that. I felt like the line was just. I understand the motivation. It took me a second to be like, well, why did he do? Oh, okay, if you go back to what he said before, I understand the motivation, but I feel like the line was out of place. Like, it took me a second to be like, oh, okay, well, he's still a villain, but okay, I understand his motivation.
Okay, it hit right for me, but I mean, I can accept that I'm not Brandy. Right? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, Brandy. Yeah.
You're a fine
Problem with it was, it didn't make sense for the way he supposedly did it. Like, why wouldn't it just be like that? Just like a snap of the fingers. Why does it have to be?
Yeah, he kind of contradicted himself, because he was
exactly.
like, here's the thing. He was like, oh, I loved her so much, and that ain't a spoiler, because
exactly.
He tells you from the get-go he loves her. And then he's like, that's why I had to do this. And I'm like, nah, you didn't have to do that.
Exactly.
It was just, I think it was more of the pause and where he put it for me, and then I had to put it together because I'm slow like that. Maybe I'm the only person that felt like the line was a little bit delayed. But I also feel like that that's a good point, Daniel, is a little bit like, it was like, but you didn't have to. Like, you're this thing that can do pretty much anything.
That is a fair criticism.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, that's a good point. So
anyway, but other than that, I will say that I know we talked about last time, but that opening scene, the opening like dance number, we'll call it, with Baby Groot, I think was really excellent.
It's so funny to me because everybody else thought it was too much reliance on Baby Groot, but you guys like that, and then other people that I've listened to really like the Drax humor, and you guys didn't like that. So it's funny to me that you guys are agreeing on one thing and then disagreeing on another. I don't really care one way or the other. I thought Drax was good. I thought Baby Groot was good. Like, I had fun with it all, but I think it's funny to hear you guys disagree on both of these two different kind of things. I don't know. I just think it's cool.
And I thought there's a joke through the where Rocket's like, "Oh, did you see my left eye again?" or something. When I thought that was hilarious. Just that running gag throughout the whole thing.
Oh yeah.
Now, Shauna did think that some of the musical numbers that they had was a little bit overdone. Like, we talked about that one scene with Yondu. Some of those were a little bit overdone. But that, this is the only movie Marvel can get away with this. And I think this is the one movie that you can really kind of be over the top superhero without being too criticized for it. So I was okay with the overtopness. There were some, like, we already talked, there were some issues there, but I thought it was great. I thought it was a good movie. So definitely one of the better ones.
I really loved, and I don't want to ruin it for Joe. I really loved the Mary Poppins reference. Like, I think
Shauna laughed really hard at that. That was cool.
Yeah, Shauna would. That and the Drax line from the first one. Nothing would go over my head. I would reach up. Those are my two favorite lines in the two movies.
And see, that's what made Drax not the bemoan the humor here, but that's what made Drax so good in the first one. That it was just these lines that were kind of, just kind of out of nowhere. And I felt like that he really
did get away from his
little
interpretation of everything.
Now I did like
but as a counterpoint, he's been hanging out with them for a long time, so he should be coming around on understanding sarcasm a little bit.
That's true. I did like his banter with Mantis. Like, I thought that was one of the best things in the whole movie. I won't ruin it because I don't want to spoil anything. But man, that was really, really funny stuff. Especially the end of it. I cackled at his last line to Mantis. I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah.
But yeah,
she was a cool character. But
she was, and she's a cool character in the comics. So I'm glad she got the chance to kind of shine a little bit. She's very much like she was in the movie. She's kind of this kind of really innocent, kind of naive character, and she was like that in the comics when she came on the team, and I really enjoyed her in the comics as well. So it worked out really well. I'm glad they did that character really good. So one thing that they continue to hint at, and I don't know if this is a subtle jab at Fox, but they continue to kind of, let's see, who owns Fantastic Four? Fox, right? Fox? No, Sony, because they have X-Men too. They had I'm sorry, Fox. It is Fox. I'll get it right here in a minute. Joe, has everybody seen Doctor Strange?
Yes.
Joe, have you seen Doctor Strange?
I watched it last night.
Okay. Joe, have you watched it? Okay.
Yes.
So in Strange, where they kind of hint at Galactus like really hard.
Mm-hmm.
They continue to hint at this in this one as well. As far as the plans of Peter's dad, because the first thing that Shauna turned to me, she was, and I'm not going to say it because it was kind of spoiled what his plan is, and I said I don't know, because they keep hinting at Galactus kind of being in pieces, I guess. It's like, oh, hey, we're going to put a little piece of Galactus in Doctor Strange, put a little piece of Galactus over here in Guardians of the Galaxy. So I kind of hope they get the Fantastic Four back so we can finally see Galactus. But they hint.
Is Galactus, I know he's primarily a Fantastic Four villain, but is he so tied to Fantastic Four that he's going to be wrapped up in that contract? He is?
Yes. Okay. He's a man. He made his first appearance in
I know he's really tied to him, but I don't know if he was only a Fantastic Four character.
Well, they could bring him in without the Fantastic Four. It'd be really sad for me personally because I really love the Fantastic Four. I hope that they don't. But
because they've had Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch in both, so I don't know if it was a similar thing or if he would.
Yeah, they're doing it the way they did in Doctor Strange. They're kind of like with Quicksilver, where they can't call him mutant, and he was like kind of experimented on by Hydra or whatever. There's ways that they could bring him in, but I really hope they kind of hold off until that Cold War between them and Fox kind of goes away. So, all right. You guys up to anything else?
I just went past hour 90 in Persona.
Hey, you got ahead of me.
So I'm working it. I'm the spoiler cast is coming. Hopefully, maybe 5 months after it's released, we could do a spoiler cast.
What dungeon are you on now?
I don't know. Which one? I'm probably past you. Which one are you on?
I think you are. I'm on. Oh crap! What's her name? The girl with the triangle orange hair. Her dad.
Okay, I'm 2 ahead of you.
Dang. Yeah, I quit playing for a while. I played Overwatch during their anniversary weekend, and then played Rocket League a lot. Kind of got.
Y'all need to catch.
It was nice, I think, because Persona 5 is so slow paced. it's been nice to go to something that's as fast paced as Overwatch and Rocket League are. I think is
I'm sure.
why I've been enjoying those.
I'm sure.
Y'all need
Yeah.
to catch up. I'm on like 1,500 hours.
Joe so far ahead, he's in Persona 6.
I'm in Persona 10, son. Get it right.
Are you guys still liking it? I know we talked about it a little bit before, but I mean, in hour 90, is it still as compelling as, say, like hour 30?
It's a little long. I mean, at 90 hours. I mean,
Let's stop for a second. It's Persona. All I've heard is that you can put in like 1,000 hours in this game, and then you say, "Oh, it's a little long."
but
Is it because it's on a
one
console? Maybe.
You think one playthrough?
Sure.
Just playing the story game. I mean, 100 hours is a long time to spend with one game, like not doing anything extra, just going through the game.
That's true.
I mean,
Well,
that's a
Persona 4 is
long
what?
game.
Andrew's 80, right? Just a playthrough, straight playthrough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's long.
I mean,
you think it's because it's on
that's
a
long.
Yeah, do you think it's because it's on a console? That's not on a handheld? Maybe the handheld because you could take it
No,
other
it's
places?
20 hours longer than the other one.
No. Well, that's true.
That's why.
But I mean, 80 hours is still a long time, and I never hear you guys say that that's a long game. Like all I ever hear is it's a really good game, and you play it twice for goodness sakes, right?
Yeah, I did.
Three times.
So I mean, fine, Andrew, superiority there.
I'm not proud of it, but you asked me, so I had to answer.
Well, obviously you are because you answered it. No,
I had to answer. How it works.
Do you think it's because it's on a console and on a handheld?
I don't know. I mean, it's the big game. I think I feel like they could have cut some content, cut one of the dungeons, because I feel like it is a little for a single playthrough. It's a high entry. What's the word I'm looking for? Gate of entry or bar of entry or something like that.
Barrier for entry. Is that the word?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, for just someone just wanting to play an RPG, I feel like a lot of people are going to quit before they reach hour 100. So I don't know.
My problem with it is I feel like it doesn't change up the pace enough. Is my problem.
That's what I've heard too. That at some point
it's just it hits the same beat every time.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
That's my issue with it. But.
So I really think I'm going to beat it within, if not this week, then by next week. So I'll have more to say then.
Do you think, Andrew, you said they could cut some things. Is it one of those things where, like, in the PS1 era where everything had to be 100 hours and you had all these crazy things you had to do but didn't really, needed to? Is it kind of like that? Is it things that,
No, it's too linear. You're on rails. You have to do.
Oh, okay. Well, that's different.
Yeah.
Interesting. Joe, what you been up to, man?
Playing Uncharted,
Which one are you playing?
the first one.
How's that? I haven't played the first one on the collection yet. Does that hold up a bit better on the HD re-release?
It's still a little wonky. I think your big complaint of it when you first played was the controls and the cameras.
Well, there's a couple things: controls, the cameras, and the fact that sometimes I couldn't really tell where I needed to go.
It's still like that.
Okay. So even the HD graphics doesn't clear up anything as far as any clarity issues. I'm sure it does, but
it does. But there's some parts when you have to find the vine that kind of swing on to get to the next place. It's really hard to see. And then there's a part where you have to turn a chain. I didn't even see the chain to turn until I accidentally ran over to a thing that, hey, I can push a triangle here, and there goes the chain. So, yeah, I like it. It's a lot. I think the gameplay is a lot better, the controllers, but it's still kind of, you tilt to jump one way, and then you end up jumping the other or falling off the little edge, and you have to climb back up. And, it's still got the old school controllers on it, but it's a fun game.
By the way, Joe is streaming this on Twitch, so if you're listening to this and need something to watch while he's streaming, Joe, what's your Twitch handle? Is that what you call it? Is that the kids call it, Twitch handle?
That's a good question because I really don't know.
It's something Disco Lumberjack. I can't remember
I think it's Disco Lumber Yeti.
Disco Lumber Yeti. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. If you want to see somebody die or sit there while he's trying to figure out where to jump next for 3 minutes, yeah, you come on and watch me. I am the king of headshots in that game, though.
Daniel, not Daniel. I'm sorry, Andrew. What you been up to?
I did play some Persona 5, so I've not abandoned the game. I've just mostly abandoned the game. It's still a little slow right now. I'm getting close to. I've beaten the dungeon that I was just talking to Daniel about, and so I'm waiting on the deadline so that the story will progress. Because, like I said, you're on rails. And then I've been playing Rocket League and Overwatch. I did see Wonder Woman. Did I mention that on the podcast?
Nope.
On Wednesday? No.
Nope.
Okay. The unheard episode right now. But
right.
Okay, so I did see Wonder Woman. I guess that's what I could talk about. Without beating the same 3 dead horses that I've talked about for the life of the podcast. Well, I didn't mention Breath of the Wild, but I didn't play it either. Wonder Woman's really good. I walked away from it, and not that that's a surprise, 97 on Rotten Tomatoes or whatever it is. But I walked away from it, because we're all tired of origin stories. And I walked away from it thinking, so that's how you do origin stories. Like they actually did it well. It does go a little corny at the end and fall, and I'm not telling you anything that 10,000 reviews won't also tell you, but the last 20 minutes or so, it goes full on cheesy superhero movie, corny stuff. But the first 2 hours or whatever it was were really good. I liked it quite a bit. Had good humor, had good story, origin stuff, kind of get you connected to the characters. One thing that I read on The Ringer, and I think they made a good point, is that Robin Wright is in there as almost like a throwaway character. That like normally you would pay some nobody actor dying to make their break a cheap amount of money, but they chose to pay Robin Wright for this throwaway character that, spoiler alert, doesn't get too far into the film, and she just kills it because she's Robin Wright. And it makes such a difference in the film, I think, to treat these side characters with a little more care than they normally do. And again, to spend more money than they would normally spend on a character like that. So that was cool. It was a good point that whoever it was on The Ringer made. But I really liked it.
Did you know she was 5 months pregnant when she shot that movie?
Gal Gadot, not Robin Wright.
No, not Robin Wright. No.
Don't be spreading salacious rumors, Joe.
Yeah, I did. You don't see that, and apparently the way they mostly hid it was to just do from top up, or they would have her wear apparently green around her belly. I don't know. So she's talked about it on Jimmy Fallon, and I heard it there, but
maybe that's why I need to start wearing green around my belly.
I can see the infomercial now. Joe be like, I just put green on my belly and it went away.
You want to lose 100 pounds easy? Put this green velvet on your belly. The pounds will just disappear. Turn it into a mountainous terrain. You like London? Put London in your midriff.
Andrew, I mean, I've heard good things overall about it. How does it set up the DCU, or should I say the DCCU? I guess
it's an origin story. It doesn't really go into that really at all.
So no Justice. I mean, I guess I shouldn't ask that question to be spoiled, but no Justice League at all, or
not that I recall. No.
Okay.
So the way the story is framed, and this is not a spoiler alert, is if you recall from Batman versus Superman, Bruce Wayne finds that picture of her standing with those guys in that conquered village in World War I. And he's like, what's the story? How's this? How are you here? And you're still alive, whatever. And so the premise of the movie basically is that he has found the original photo, chased it down, purchased it, and sent it to her wherever she works. And he's like, okay, I did this for you. Now you need to tell me the story. And it doesn't actually show him. It just shows her kind of opening the thing and then seeing an email or whatever. But you kind of get the impression that she's telling Bruce the story at this point.
That's cool.
Even though Bruce isn't there, she never like narrates the story or anything. But that's kind of the impression you get, is that that's how this story is being told. But other than that, I don't recall anything. I'm not a comic book authority, so I can't say for sure that there was nothing. But I didn't get the impression that there was anything, because most of the film is set in World War One.
Right.
I mean, you're telling me that DC didn't put Batman in a movie?
I know, but the facts are the facts.
Well, Batman's not immortal, so he can't be in every movie. How'd you like the World War One setting? Fun fact about this was around 2005, maybe 2004. They wanted Joss Whedon to do a Wonder Woman movie, and he wanted to set it in World War One. They flat out refused. They was like, we just don't like your script. It wouldn't get views, and now it's in World War One, which is kind of crazy. You kind of figured maybe somebody found that script and was like, hey, we could kind of do this type of thing. Makes you wonder a little bit. Well, how'd you like the World War One setting? Was that what made part of the origin story pretty cool? Because it was actually
probably because it does change it up. World War One isn't really touched on that much,
right?
And actually, just to kind of show you how much I don't pay attention to these things a lot of times, it wasn't until after the film that I realized that it was set in World War One and not World War Two.
Okay.
The lack of swastikas, no mention of Hitler, all those things should have been cues for me, but it just didn't occur to me. And she leaves. Oh crap, Themyscira, is that it?
Themyscira, yeah.
Themyscira, and she leaves there and goes to London, and it's not bombed to debris. So that should have also been a sign for me, but I missed all of that. And it's better that it's World War One, because
I think it's fascinating.
If it's World War Two, then Hitler's Ares, right? But
right. I think it's fascinating that Guardians of the Galaxy, I didn't put a pause together and you get in the World War One stuff. I think it's pretty funny. You did, but I didn't in the World War One stuff.
Yeah. So, but I thought it was cool to kind of have that, and you don't see a lot of World War One movies out there, so
that's true.
It.
They made that one video game about it, but I don't know. Yeah, so that's awesome. I mean, I keep hearing a lot of good things about it, and I'm definitely going to see it. I'm going to wait a little bit before I do, but I'm glad that Wonder Woman, because she was such a great character in the animated series for Justice League. There's some really good Wonder Woman stories out there. If you ever want a really good Wonder Woman story, read The New Frontier. There's a scene where, because Wonder Woman's supposed to, she's never, and me and Joe's talked about this a lot, me and Jared has, where, she's an Amazon. Like, she's supposed to kind of tower over people because she is a superwoman, boss, and there's a scene in, this was it during World War II, actually. And it's like the story's like a transition from the golden age to the silver age. And there's a scene where she goes and liberates this camp that is basically enslaving women, and she basically slaughters them all, and because of their transgression. And Superman shows up because he's working for the government, and they're saying, hey, you need to go talk to her. This isn't how we want to operate, and stuff like that. And basically, like, she's taller than Superman, like she's looking down at Superman. And I just thought it was a really, really cool kind of contrast that here's the Man of Steel, the ultimate superhero, and Wonder Woman's basically, looking down at him and poking his chest, and say, this is why I did it. You should be doing it too, type of thing. So I'm glad this character is finally getting the recognition she deserves. She's a great character. She has a rich backstory. And hopefully they tap into that, more and more. She's an interesting character because she is immortal. She is a god, and there's a lot of really cool kind of story beats that you can play around with there. So I'm glad you liked it, because it gets me excited to go see it. So
one of the things that is cool, now that you mention that, because I forgot about it, is of course World War One was a time when in our society women were not respected, and so seeing her interactions with that world was also cool. I won't go into further detail because I just won't, but it was also cool, basically.
Very cool. Very cool. I think it's what Jenna, which writes for the blog, I think she wrote about that for Peggy Carter. and how she was in a man's world, but so that will be interesting to see, like, this super powerful woman in a time where women was kind of put down. That's pretty cool. So I'm glad they kind of did that too. All right, so let's get on to the main topic, because this may take a while, and we're going to try to keep it as short as we can here. But like I said, about 3-4 weeks ago, we all kind of received the Game Informer. I think it was issue number, I won't see the issue number on here. It doesn't matter. 290. And first of all, let me say this. If you haven't seen the cover for this, this is probably one of my favorite covers I've ever seen on Comic or Magazine. Basically, in this, they cover the top 100 RPGs of all time. I didn't see the artist's name on here. I think they say it inside the article, and I'll get it. But it's a gorgeous cover. And it just has, like, all these classic RPG characters, and, like, the front has a bunch of amiibos from different games that he's put in, and the back has a bunch of, like, cards and old PlayStation stuff on it. It looks really cool. So kudos to that. If you don't care about the list, just go check out the front of the magazine, because it's pretty cool. It's artist by Rob Duanez. So really, really cool art on the front. But anyway, so Game Informer decides, obviously, to do something that can be very, especially in the geek sphere, the geek universe, can be very controversial. And this list, I think, touches on that. I think it's kind of controversial on some of the games that they've included and whether or not they actually are RPGs. But obviously, the first thing I look at, I don't necessarily read all the write-ups first. You kind of scroll through and kind of see what, where your favorite RPG is, or just where everything kind of falls first. What was your initial, we'll start with you, Andrew, your initial reaction to the list, like just skimming the list, not necessarily paying attention to it, but kind of see where the numbers kind of fall? What was your initial?
My initial thought was, what on earth criteria did they use to decide, first of all, what's on the list, and then beyond that, how they ranked what's on the list?
And that's, we talked about this a little bit this morning. I think we had the discussion, Daniel, as well. I don't see anything. May I talk about, like, core concepts, but they don't name any core concepts. Some of the things that say make an RPG successful, that includes leveling up, upgrading abilities, equipping gear, forming relationships, fighting through dungeons, and some stuff. But they don't really say what the criteria is in that short kind of, a couple 100-word paragraph there. So it was interesting to kind of see, because there's a lot of games where you can equip equipment that's not necessarily an RPG. There's a lot of games that has exploration that's not necessarily an RPG. So there's games with great stories that aren't necessarily RPGs as far as that. So it's interesting, I think, as far as that goes. So so Daniel, Andrew obviously said the criteria. What was the first thing that kind of, after you read the article, your initial impressions?
I thought it was fair. There was a couple of games on here that I didn't know if they belonged, and I know it's going to come up, but Destiny, it was whether Destiny belongs. I don't know, maybe a couple others, and there's a lot of older school games that I've never played before. But I thought, from the list that I just glanced over, I thought it was fair. I thought it was a fair list. As far as criteria goes, I don't know if I read this in here, and I can't remember, but pretty much RPGs pretty much have influenced every other type of game, right? Pretty much any type of game now has RPG-ish elements, whether it's
Leveling,
leveling up, you continue to grow a character, things like that. So what is an RPG and whether it belongs on this list, I think is up for debate. But my first reaction was this is a fair list. I think this is fair.
Joe, what about you, man?
I guess to answer y'all's question about how that they were ranking them or what system they used, I think they compared most of these to probably Baldur's Gate. I don't know if y'all have ever played that or not, but there's a lot of those that would have similar not content, but what's the word I'm looking for? Like
Yes, content. There you go. Gameplay elements, gameplay elements.
Elements to Baldur's Gate.
Okay.
So I think that might be something that they might have looked at.
One of the things that looking at the list, and this is, I own a lot of these. I haven't necessarily played a lot of them, but from the stuff that I watch as far as the retro games and stuff like that, a lot of the games that have been mentioned was on this list. So it was one of those things where you see like top SNES RPGs or top PS1 RPGs. A lot of those games made this list. One of the things that not a lot of Sega stuff, man, which was, you think about Sega, you look at Phantasy Star, you look at Shining Force, right? Shining Force.
Lunar's not on this list.
Oh, what? It's not?
Nope.
Wow, because that's one that always gets some really good hub. But yeah, looking at it, it checked off a lot of the boxes as far as some of the classic one that's on. I didn't even notice that Lunar went on it. That's kind of disappointing.
Bro, we ain't gonna talk about it now.
But yeah, so I'm with you, Daniel. There's some stuff. I think there was. We talked. I think Andrew, you talked about Destiny being on the list. We talked about Breath of the Wild being on the list, and especially Zelda's always kind of up for debate whether it's an RPG or it's an action game or something like that. So I was kind of surprised. Joe just sent me the IGN list, and one of the things that I was kind of surprised about was. Persona 4 being behind Persona 5. Thought that was kind of a weird thing because I've played 40 hours of Persona 4. I totally get why that's a good game. Like Andrew, you was right. Daniel, you was right. It's a cool game with a lot of cool mechanics. I didn't think I liked the social stuff, but the social stuff actually is probably one of my favorite parts of the game. The battling is a little bit boring at times. It is basically a dungeon crawler. So if you don't like dungeon crawlers, you may not like it. But everything that kind of leads up to that, I really like. After hearing everybody talk about Persona 5, like on podcasts and hearing you guys talk about it, I was kind of surprised it was ranked that high. Was you guys surprised that it kind of jumped Persona 4?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not ready to make that claim yet. I'll let you know.
Okay.
Daniel's holding back. He's like, I'm going to get all the way through this game that I already think is too long before I give you my opinion on it. I respect that, but I'm ready to make my decision.
I'll keep you posted. I'll let you know. Listen, I get to spend more time with Makoto, so that's all I care about. That's
I do like Makoto. She's pretty awesome.
One of the cool things I thought that they did was they included a lot of the old kind of PC, Linux back games. I thought that was pretty cool. I think some of these lists kind of forget those because, first of all, they're not really readily available at times. I know Good Old Games has a lot of them that you can kind of download, but and sometimes, to be quite honest, they're really hard to play. Obviously they were very limited by the technology that you see now. But I thought it was pretty cool, especially some of the things they designed. Like, hey, this is the first game to do this, or this is something that actually so many RPGs either improved on or used, or something like that. I thought it was pretty cool that they kind of paid, that they had some games on there that I'm never going to play. Like I'm not going to, try to get some of these older games to try to play. But it was pretty cool to kind of read about them and see where kind of the genre. Some of the, I guess, forefathers of the genre kind of came into play. They even went as far back as there was one on here that was basically like a top-down, looks like an Atari game. It was in the back, I think, and I can't remember which one it is. I'll have to find it. But let's talk about the games that are on the list. Let's talk about a game that maybe you thought should have been higher. Maybe something that you personally thought, or maybe you've seen other lists that it ranked a lot higher. And like I said, Andrew and Daniel's probably played more than any of these on here. But Daniel, was there anyone that kind of popped up on the list that you thought maybe that should have been a little bit higher?
I thought about this a lot, and I know I told you that I thought it was a fair list.
But.
If I had to pick one that I think should have been higher, be Hold on, I'm going back over the list. Hold on. Man, I'm not sure. I guess I'm going to say Suikoden 2, I think, should have been higher.
Okay, so how do you say this? Let's have this discussion right quick. Do you say Suikoden? I say Suikoden.
I say Suikoden. That's what I heard. That's what I've always said.
I've heard Suikoden. Like I've heard like a ton of different ways. So
that's how I've always said it. So
Monsters of Geek, you say it the exact same way you always did. I'm gonna say Suikoden because that's how I've heard it the most. But you go for it.
Okay, I expected that one to be a little higher. I mean, that's always on a list. You know, any list of top PS1 RPGs, that's on it. I thought that should have been higher, and to be honest, I think there should have been another one of those games on the list. You know, that's a pretty well-known series within, you know, at least the RPG community, maybe not the overall gamer community, but I'm surprised there wasn't at least one other game on that list from that series.
Daniel, what about you, man?
I mean, it's not to say that not to say that 29 isn't good, but I think it should have been higher. I think it should have been higher.
Andrew, what about you? Was there one that maybe you felt like was a little bit underrated?
Breath of the Wild, if you're going to put it on this list, and I do think it deserves it. I think it's RPG enough. How in the world is it at 40-some when it's going to be Game of the Year? But maybe even worse than that, and I haven't played it, but I've had several friends who all agree it's amazing, is Horizon at 84.
Mm-hmm.
If it's as good as people say it is. Like, those are the two that jumped out at me. And Destiny, actually, because again, I don't think it should be on a list of RPGs, but it does have a level system, and it is social if you count real life people as being social, which I guess technically very much does count. So, and it's got like raids and stuff, so I guess that kind of makes it an RPG. I would argue that it isn't, but if you're going to put it on the list, it deserves to be higher than 81, in my opinion. But high, I played it for 1,000 hours. So
Horizon is 84, just for the sake of argument there.
Horizon's 84. Breath of the Wild is what, 48, maybe 47. 47.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and Destiny is 81.
Wild, and Destiny's 81. So those three jumped out at me. I was like, what were you, if you were going to put them here, what were you doing putting them where you put them?
That's one thing that it
just didn't make sense.
I agree with Andrew. There's some games on here that I felt like are so new, like the Breath of the Wild, Horizon, that I feel like they should have been, because those games are great, and I agree they should be on the list. I think they both have enough RPG elements to definitely qualify for it. But I think it's hard, and I know you have to kind of look at the time and what they did at the time and the impact at the time, but I think that both of those games, they probably should have been higher. I mean, I'm not saying they should have been top 10, but I think that they are games that when you play them 10 years from now, they're in the top 10, top 15. And I think that they're good enough now that they trump a lot of these games. For example, I hear you talk about Mass Effect, and I know you guys literally like Mass Effect, but the only thing I ever hear about is really the only one that's replayable is Mass Effect 2. Or,
Wrong.
Wrong. Okay, Andrew says wrong. So a lot of the podcasts, it is wrong. So a lot of the podcasts I listen to, there was a good debate with Giant Bomb whether or not they would want a Mass Effect trilogy put out, like a HD remake or something like that. And one of the guys was like, yes, if they fixed everything that was broken with 1 and 2, or they changed or 1 and 3 or whatever it may be. But they is a consensus that one of the girls had not played it, one of the new people that was on there, and she said, should I go back and play it? And they was like, go play 2. was basically, or maybe, it was 2, maybe it was 3, but one of the two, it was only one of them in that series that he said. So I feel like Legend of Zelda should be above all the Mass Effect games, because I do feel like, and I haven't played Mass Effect, so maybe I'm completely wrong, but it's a good enough game that I could say, hey, go play Zelda. But I've heard enough about Mass Effect that I don't feel like the Mass Effect trilogy is something that is say, hey, yeah, you need to play that, versus Legend of Zelda and Horizon, which 10 years from now will say you need to go play that, because they are good games. So that was something that I agree, Daniel. I want to say Andrew. Sorry.
Can I jump in on you real quick?
Yeah.
And we've talked a little bit about criteria and how they organize this list, and I was thinking about this when we originally talked about it, and I sort of object to the idea that the fact that we're going to like a game in 10 years is worthy, makes it a worthy game, or makes it a great game.
But doesn't longevity count?
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't. Okay,
no, it doesn't.
I really want to hear this. Go ahead.
my point is if it has longevity, fine, that's great. But no game is made for an audience 20 years from now.
Sure. I'm not going to argue that point. I'm not going to say that somebody made that game was like we need to have this game way past it can be profitable, any profit for us to still be bought and played in some sense. But I do feel like that longevity in the game adds to its legacy. Like for example, you look at 2 of the top 3 games.
Years from now.
How old are those games? It's because 1, they still play really well. So the mechanics, I don't think they try to do crazy things with the mechanics that make it feel aged. I think that's a key to this list. Like you have some mechanics like are super aged and they don't work out really well versus some mechanics that, like for example, Final Fantasy VI. We talk about Final Fantasy VI all the time. Those mechanics push the boundary of the Super Nintendo, but they're still very good even in this age. You don't do anything that makes them feel aged. So I think I do think that the legacy or the longevity of the game, and it's still being played 20 to 25 years, and still people play for the first time. Man, this is a really good game. I think that should count. I think it should count as a legacy.
See, I don't think so. And I'm sorry I got knocked off there, guys. Sorry about that. So I missed some of your argument, and my argument got cut off. But what I was trying to say was, like in 1990, they didn't say, "Gosh, I hope people in 2010 really love this game." Right? It's not being made for that person. It's not being made for that generation. It's made for when it's released. That audience, that's who it's made for. So I sort of think that's why I appreciate all these old games on this list that are unplayable now. None of us would go back and play a lot of these old games, but it's what they did for the time that makes it important. So I think you can say like, yeah, this game has great longevity, and that's fine. But I don't think it should be a criteria for is this the greatest game ever, or is this a great game? No. You can say whether it's a great game, but not as far as is it the greatest game ever. Like I would have been just fine if some unplayable game had been listed as number 1, from 1980, because I don't think that the fact that I can play it now has any bearing on whether or not it's a good game. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. You're wrong, but it makes no sense. I'll steal one of Andrew's lines. I think that I don't think it's everything. I don't think legacy is everything in a game, but I think it has to say something for a game that can still be played 25 years later. Like it has to say something for how good that game was. And I kind of disagree in the sense that yeah, sure they make it for the time, but if you don't think Miyamoto wanted to make Mario and make a classic that 20 years later was still being played, I think you're wrong on that. I think that these developers want to make a game that has a long-lasting effect that 20 years from now you can still pick up and have a good time with.
See, I guess I disagree. I mean,
I guess it's according to the developer, I guess. I don't know.
He's sitting there, and I don't know Miyamoto, obviously. I've never met the man.
Well, I do. Okay, no, I'm joking.
I mean, are we saying that when he made Mario, he's sitting there thinking, like, man, I'm going to make a game that people in 25 years are still going to be talking about. I don't know if he did that. I mean, I think it's much more relevant that he's just like, I'm going to make a great game. And the fact that it holds up is certainly good, but I just don't think that it should be considered for.
But even if the developer doesn't have that goal, the fact of the matter is the game, Final Fantasy VI and Chrono Trigger are still usually in the top 10 or top 5, or sometimes rotates number 1 with all these lists. And I think legacy does play a lot in longevity. We're going to disagree on this. I think you make good points, Daniel. I think I totally understand your points. But for me, it's, there's a reason why I started going back and getting these games, because I kept seeing Chrono Trigger and I kept seeing Final Fantasy VI on these lists of great games or great SNES games or great 16-bit games or greatest games of all time that made me want to go play these.
Yeah, and And I guess I keep thinking about like looking at the difference between Final Fantasy VI and Final Fantasy VII. I mean, two different systems, both very influential. Obviously, Final Fantasy VII was much more popular. But if you put both of them side by side today, you're probably going to have a lot more fun playing Final Fantasy VI because the way the graphics are, it's much easier to play.
Sure.
You know, you look at Final Fantasy VII and all the polygons and you know, weird shapes, and it's just like, oh man, I'm turned off of this. That doesn't change the fact that it was a great game when it came out.
Sure, and there's other criteria that helps make that game better. How much it sold, how popular it actually was, some of the mechanics that they brought into that game. It was the first game with any type of weird polygonal CG. So I don't think longevity does everything for you, but it definitely is something that is, you know, when you go through this criteria of things that, you know, if we're ranking 1 to 10, then obviously Final Fantasy VI with the longevity would be 10, but if you look at popularity, you put Final Fantasy VII as a 10 because obviously it would be a little bit more popular. So I think longevity plays a part. It's not everything. There's some games that have a lot of longevity that I play. And I was like, I don't get it. Like I don't get why this is still mentioned. I think it's ultimately it's up to the player, and nostalgia plays a lot of that into as far as some of these older games as well. But you know, I get your point, but I don't think it can be completely dismissed. So
okay, fair enough.
Okay.
And I didn't mean to go off on a tangent. I apologize.
No, you're good. No, that's good. This is exactly what I want. Don't apologize. We don't apologize on the Monsters of Geek for our opinion, okay? Believe me, if Joe, it'd be Joe's opinions. We would have had a whole episode of him apologizing for being wrong. So
I don't apologize to him for nothing.
Andrew, you want to say anything about the list as far as?
So I do have a guess on what their criteria was, and it would explain things why like Horizon is so low and why something like Skyrim is, I think we all agree, higher than it should be at number 1. I don't think we're going to get any disagreement there. And so all I can figure, and my friends and I have done this before, where we'll rank our top 10 PS4 games. We did this actually last year, maybe earlier this year. I don't remember. And basically the thought was you put together your 10 and we'll all put together our own separate 10s, and then you just sign point values in reverse order. Actually, it's what we did for the
movie thing. Yeah.
For our movie thing as well. Yeah. And so what you end up with, and this also happened with our movie lists 2 years ago or whenever that was, is the ones that everybody's seen get higher than ones that maybe are still better, like like Captain America, Winter Soldier not making even the top 5, as an example, as an obvious example that we should still be embarrassed about. So Skyrim was probably played by everyone because Skyrim is probably played by everyone, right? Like that's just kind of how that works. And then where Horizon and Breath of the Wild maybe are newer, perhaps, and in their staff, not as many people have played those yet because they're all working and playing games for a living, of course, and not just playing, but also writing about these games for a living. And so maybe they just hadn't gotten there yet. And if they redid the list at the end of the year, Horizon would be a lot higher and Breath of the Wild would be a lot higher. I don't know because they couldn't be bothered to give us this, give us an explanation, which is their own dumb fault. But since they didn't, then all we can do is guess. And that is the only way that I can see where you would have this list make more sense than it does in its current form, because otherwise it doesn't make sense to me.
Joe, did you have any underrated games that maybe?
Underrated game.
Yeah, go ahead, Andrew.
The World Ends With You. I was thrilled to see that on there.
Dude, I really want to play that. And to be quite honest, I am looking to get like the new 3DS, the 2DS when I can save enough money to get it. That's one of the first games I want to play. I've heard so many, and they released it on iOS, but it stinks. Like I said, the controls are terrible. Everything is terrible about it. And it's still relatively expensive. Like it's $30 to $40.
Yeah, I have a copy, but I haven't beaten it. But I've really enjoyed my time with it. It's complicated because you you're supposed to watch both screens at one time. I found myself just pushing buttons for the top screen and actually focusing on the bottom screen. But yeah, I really liked it. So I was glad to see it on there. It's a lot higher on the IGN list, which it probably deserves to be. But again, that would be one that if you haven't, that you're not likely to have played. So it would be hard to hop on the list in that situation.
Joe, man, what do you think about the list, man? Was there any underrated ones that you thought?
I'm surprised that the Vampire, the Masquerade, is that far down on the list at 98.
Yeah, we've had this discussion. That game is still brought up today, and I think that they're having a lot of people maintain it until. And I think I want to say that they kickstarted a new one. I think the sequel is the Kickstarter now, but that's something that you hear people talk about as one of those games. We may talk about we talked about the old games and how obviously their replayability is a little bit down, but their legacy is very high as far as what they've added to the RPG genre. But Vampires is one of those that, one, people still play, and two, still improving with their own stuff on PC and whatnot. But it's also one that was one of the first ones that gave you choices as far as dialogue choices, stuff like that. Now, obviously, PC, a little bit more power, obviously a lot more. You could do a lot more with that than what you could at the consoles all the time. But Joe, kind of talk about that too. I mean, I think that it does deserve maybe be a little bit higher from what I've heard and from how highly people speak about it.
Yeah, I mean, with legacy stuff like that and the contributions, I think I know this is the Game Informer, but I know IGN I think had it in the top. I think maybe 52.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe even higher than that. I can't remember what it was. It might have been 42. But yeah, I was just really surprised to see that it was 98. And then another one, I know he said one, but
42 on the IGN list.
42.
Yeah.
I really think that Oblivion should have been higher. It's at 52.
What do you think Oblivion? Now, you've always said that you thought Oblivion was better. Is the better of the Elder Scroll games, right? No, I'm sorry, Morrowind. You said you like Morrowind.
I like the storyline in Morrowind, but I thought Oblivion as far as story goes, and probably something that everybody tried to capture, because really Oblivion. I know Skyrim got real popular, but it wasn't for Oblivion. I don't think Skyrim would have been as popular as it was today.
Sure.
Because a lot of people picked up Oblivion, but I think as far as RPG goes in that category, I think a lot of people try to copy what they've done in Oblivion to make their games.
Sure. So Vampire was 42 on IGN and 98 on the Game Informer list. That's a pretty stark differences between two lists. So that will tell you where, kind of where Andrew's coming from, how maybe the list was kind of put together a little bit differently.
I mean, it's just a guess, obviously.
Sure.
But.
I think it's a good theory. Sure. Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you another big stark difference if you want to go into it right now.
Sure.
Is that the number one on Game Informer's list is like number 25 on IGN's list.
Yeah. You could definitely
that feels more right for Skyrim.
Sure,
it does.
Sure.
And it feels right because Morrowind is number 21, so it's
one of the games that that I thought, excuse me, was a little bit underrated that I really liked, and it's one that I'm actually currently playing. And there's some knocks against it, especially the original. But I think Odin Sphere is a very kind of whimsical kind of RPG. Numerous stories kind of tied into one. It's more of a kind of like a beat 'em up RPG. I know that sounds weird to say, but it's a cool way to implement RPG. It's a 2D. It's beautiful. It's gorgeously drawn. I think the graphics by themselves are just gorgeous. But the characters are super different. You have to kind of plan on how you want to upgrade them, and is it close combat, or do you want to go? There's some characters that are better long range. I think one thing that hurt this game was I think probably a lot of the people that originally played on the PS2, and its frame rate issue was terrible because they tried to do. I don't know how. Playing on the Vita and then fixing that obviously had a lot more horsepower. I don't know how they released that game on the PS2 because it would have been there are times where there's so much stuff going on screen that your PS2 probably would have blew up. Like it pushed that hardware so far to the point where it literally, I'm sure, had to push a panic button to kind of keep up with everything that was going on. I've been playing on the Vita. It's gorgeous on the Vita. It's really good. I like the upgrade system. It's very easy to understand. There's a food system that they kind of implemented to upgrade your experience and whatnot, which I thought was cool. You'd find ingredients and you go to like his cook and you'd sit down and eat and stuff. I thought was pretty cool. But I thought maybe it should have been a little bit higher, especially since it was released on the Vita and they fixed a lot of that I feel like I think it comes in at 80. I think IGN maybe had it a little bit higher than that. But I just think it's a very cool kind of – it's a cool setting. The story's cool. It can get a little button mashy at times, but once you start getting a lot of the combos, and it also has, which a lot of RPGs don't have, I talk about Vanquish a lot. One of the cool things about Vanquish is it's not an RPG, obviously, but one of the cool things you can go back and play the levels, and it has this arcade scoring system that you can go back. Odin Sphere has the same thing. So you go through these battle areas and you get ranked S rank, A rank, B rank. And it kind of comes down to how many hit combos you get, the range of combos you use, special moves, how you finish an enemy, the technical stuff like do you guard and stuff like that. And it really kind of plays, and the better rank you get, the more kind of loot you get out of it. So I thought it was pretty cool, the replayability of that. And you talk about platinum. I mean, there's a lot of stuff you can go back and actually do that doesn't seem like a slog. Like even though it's a kind of a button mashy at time, it does once you start getting those combos, kind of becomes more of, hey, I can do this combo I haven't done before, or lead with this move and then pop into another special move. So it's a really cool RPG button masher kind of arcade type of feel to it that I don't think I've ever seen in an RPG. So I thought they did a really good job of kind of blending those weird kind of wonky genres together into one game. So
you mind if I throw out the next? Oh, go ahead.
I had a couple other things I wanted to complain about. There is no Ease game on here. E7 in particular deserves to be on there. Is not cool. Not cool, man. It's not cool. And then this is a big one for me, but probably you guys aren't going to care. We need to get over the romanticism that we have, whatever. We need to quit romanticizing the original Pokemon games.
Oh, okay.
Because they're not better than the new ones.
Man, I thought for sure that was going to go with Final Fantasy VII.
I did too. Here it comes. Here it comes.
I'm going to let that one slide today. But no, we need to quit. I mean, because the argument is always, and actually, Gold and Silver are really good, so I'm not too mad about that. But Pokemon Yellow being as high as it is on IGN's list, and Pokemon Red and Blue, I think, is what is pretty high on the Game Informer list. I forget now. But whatever it is, like
15.
Yeah, it's Red and Blue are. Yeah.
Yes.
Those are not good games anymore. And I know that kind of goes back to what Daniel is arguing, but and I get what you're saying, Daniel. I don't agree with it either, but I get what you're saying. But in this case, you have games that are basically the same but better. So why would you put the old game that isn't as good on there? I don't understand. I don't agree with it. And the argument is always like, well, the designs are better. It's like, no, they're not. Like 2 of the Pokemon are just Pokeballs. That's all they are. It's just Pokeballs in the first generation. Voltorb and Electrode are just Pokeballs. That's all they are. And so we need to quit them. And they kind of have a reason for being that, because they appear to be Pokeballs and they blow up on people. It's like, well, that's also kind of stupid. But I just don't understand why we romanticize those. Sun and Moon are better. X and Y were better. Black and White were a lot better. I don't understand why we do that, and I don't agree with it. If you're going to put a Pokemon game, should be on here, but it should be, in general, the newest one.
I think Pokemon's one of those things. At least I've never played a Pokemon game, but from what Andrew talks about, and then from what some of the articles I've read, it's kind of like Mario Kart. I feel like the best Mario Kart is always the latest Mario Kart. Almost always. And I feel like that's the vibe that I get from Pokemon, is that it's always the newest one is always, and there's some, qualms about new ones, sure. But as far as, it's always, it seems universally praised that, that the new one is usually the best. And so I do agree. I think I won't bring up that dirty word for Andrew. The nostalgia of it, I think, plays a lot into it. I think that, as far as, and I'm sure we'll talk about that in Final Fantasy VII, but that plays a lot into these games as well. I think
Yeah.
if it didn't, then we wouldn't have lists. I think
and I'm sorry, but Dragonite is a stupid design, and Charizard is really cool, but they may never design anything as cool as Greninja. I'm sorry. It's just the reality of it. A ninja frog that throws water shurikens is just like the apex of Pokemon design. I don't know that they're going to beat that.
Welcome to Andrew's Pokemon Unleashed. Go ahead, Daniel. I think you had a question. And I was going to ask Andrew a follow-up, but I can't remember what it was. But go ahead, Daniel.
I mean,
my rant just went a little too long, huh?
I mean, the next obvious question is what's the most overrated game on the list?
Oh, man.
I mean,
yeah.
I don't feel, and I'll start out. I don't really feel comfortable saying Skyrim because I've never played Skyrim. So, and I went through the list trying to find a game that I thought was overrated, and I really couldn't find one because most of the games that I've played on the list I felt like were pretty fairly put in there. So, I don't know. I don't know if I have one. I don't know if I have one.
I'll tell you what it's overrated. And I haven't played these games, but every time I hear somebody talk about it, it makes me not. And Jerry, I wish Jerry was on here because he'd probably argue against me on this. But I think the Fallout games, especially the new ones, maybe not the old ones, but everything I hear about these Fallout games is they're a janky mess, like they're just broke. And so, just for example, Jeff Gerstmann, they talked about Fallout 4, and a lot of people had it on their Game of the Year list, and some of them had it as the Game of the Year. And Jeff Gerstmann just came out and said, look, Bethesda does great things. Fallout is not one of them. It's broke. They release it broke. It can be a fun game, but there's always something that causes it not to – something that either corrupts a file or a mission goes wrong because there's some kind of glitch. And I think that these games – I'm not saying they're not good games to some people, but I almost feel like the consensus is, it has a lot of glitches, but it's a good game. And if you have to preference that – before a game, I feel like that they may be just a little bit overrated because everything I hear is these games are somewhat broken to a certain extent. And sure, they fix them over time. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But I just have never had any desire to play Fallout games. And on most of these lists, Fallout games, especially Fallout 3, New Vegas, and Fallout 4 are usually, from what I understand with New Vegas, that shouldn't be on any lists. I heard that game was just a mess.
A disaster.
Yeah. And I think that, I guess maybe because, the excuse that they say is that Bethesda, they do things differently. Like they try to push the thing about it is, and Gerstmann made this point, was that Fallout 3 was glitchy. New Vegas was even glitchier, and then Fallout 4 is glitchy. At some point, if you're going to create a game, you either one have to scale it back where it's not glitchy. Right. Either you scale it back or you make a new engine, or you make an engine that works for your game. And I think that it's just, and I'm not saying Bethesda is a terrible, game developer. Obviously they're not, but it just, everything I hear about the Fallout series, I'm like, I just don't want to play that. Like if I want to put, we talk about long games. If you put 80 hours in the game and you get to a point where it glitches out on you and you have to start over, or you have to start, at another save point 30 hours back, or you're constantly having backup save points because, at some point you're going to glitch out. I just don't think those games belong on a list. I just don't. They get I don't see how a game that has a subpar quality, especially not necessarily like an earlier game that was limited by their tech. Bethesda's not limited by tech. Bethesda has so much they can work with to make these games better, and they almost like they refuse because this is just how we make Fallout games. It almost like they make a game about a nuclear holocaust, and their game is a nuclear holocaust. Like it's, it's just that broken. So I've never played them, and if you want to email monstersofgeek@gmail.com, that's fine, and tell me I'm stupid. But everything I hear about those games, I don't think they belong on any list because they are so broken.
I mean, I don't agree with that necessarily, just because Skyrim is good. It just doesn't deserve to be number one. So
yeah.
That it doesn't deserve to be on the list entirely, I would take issue with. But I don't know. When they work, they seem to work well. But I haven't played a Fallout either. I'm just playing devil's advocate here. When they work well. But the problem is that they don't work.
Sure.
They seem to not work quite a bit. So Yeah, I see what you're saying, but I would take issue with the blanket statement they don't deserve to be on the list at all.
Okay, I won't soften on that, but I just but the thing about it is I can forgive a game that was made 20 years ago for a glitch because they can't fix it, But I can't forgive like a Fallout 4 that has all these glitches or a Fallout 3 at the time.
Sometimes we forget how broken Skyrim was on PS3. Like,
sure.
Oh yeah.
Literally unplayable.
Yeah.
All right. What about you, Dan, or not Daniel, but Andrew? Did you see anything that was maybe like overrated?
I just took issue with the Pokemon games being too high. But I mean, again, if you swap that for Sun and Moon, I would be fine with it. So
okay,
it is what it is there. Other than that, Skyrim jumped out at me. I'm not gonna hate on Final Fantasy VII. Persona 4 is too low at 30. Persona 5 is too high, I think, at 19.
Rapid fire.
I'm flipping through the pages and calling them out as I see them. Other than that, I can't speak for, like Bloodborne being 11. I don't know if that's too high. I don't think it is based on what I've heard, but I can't speak to that. I was glad to see Knights of the Old Republic at 7. I would rather
that was super high. Yeah,
I would, and it deserves it. I would rather 2 be there, but again, that's my rose-colored glasses game. So I'm not mad about that. Understand the argument there. Joe, what?
Well, when you said 2, I think both 1 and 2 should be in the top 10. I thought they were really good.
I really loved them.
Good games.
I wouldn't have a problem with it, but I understand wanting to diversify a little, I guess.
Yeah.
Have you played the modded version that restores all that content that was cut?
I've not.
No, it's pretty. Some of it's good, some of it's not good, but check that out.
I think I enjoyed 2 a little bit more because I could be a villain.
Yeah, I liked 2 better.
I'll go ahead and answer this question so you don't have to ask it again. I wouldn't be mad if all 3 Elder Scrolls games in the top 15. I don't think Skyrim would probably end up in. I think it should end up in a few more years in the probably top 5. I think
after they release it on 3 more systems and
yes.
Coming to the PlayStation 12.
By then we'll be able to play it on our phones, so it'll be on the phones too.
After they release it for the virtual room, and I'm sorry if you can hear the rain. It just started pouring the rain here. But I think there's some. I think overall, I think The Witcher 3 was probably if you're talking release, because like Andrew said, when it came out for PS3, I bought it. The Skyrim for PS3. I took it back the next day because it was too dark. I mean, there was a lot of things that was wrong with it that I didn't enjoy.
As in get like too dark in storyline, or just overall like the what?
No, just overall. Like I couldn't see anything.
Like Witcher.
No, we're talking about Skyrim right now.
Okay. All right. Okay.
But I think overall, like now I'm not getting to The Witcher to make my point. When The Witcher came out, I thought it was a better overall game from release point than Skyrim was. Now the thing about that Bethesda does that I like is they let people go in and mod the games, and that's their big thing. That's what I like about it. They do. If you have PC,
and by mod he means 4, fix.
Yeah, by fix, right?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Like there's a lot of good HD fixes that was on the PC. A lot of good lighting fixes that fix the lighting issues. Weather fixes. I mean, there was a lot of good things on there. Heck, you could turn the dragons into Macho Man if you really wanted to. But I mean, overall, I think if you're gonna put it at number 1, then I think The Witcher should probably have surpassed it as number 1. The Witcher 3. I just thought from the get-go that game was so much more playable than Skyrim was.
Joe, let me ask you this, man. And I thought you was kind of going a different way with the underrated one, but Fable 2 at what 56? You put a ton of time into Fable 2, more than Fable 1. Did you think that you want to say so?
Well, I mean, I think Fable 2. I think the reason why Fable isn't on the list is because it disappointed so many people because we thought we was gonna get a totally different game than what we got because they rushed it out. I enjoyed Fable, and I probably put a lot of time in because, I played it so many times. And then you got the Lost Chapters that came out, and I really liked Jack of Blades as a villain. Fable 2, I enjoyed it, and I probably enjoyed it just a little bit more than the first Fable. Of course, 3 is probably Unspeakable. That's probably why it's not on the list. But 2, I think it should have been. I enjoyed it better than Dragon Age Inquisition, which I think is in the 20s, if I'm not mistaken.
No, Dragon Age Origins, I think, was in the 20s.
Origins.
Yeah.
That's the one I'm talking about. Is I enjoyed it more than Dragon Age Origins. Inquisition's the newest one.
Yeah.
That's back in the 50s.
I like
That's in
Inquisition, but
I liked Inquisition, but I didn't really. I don't know if I liked Origins that great, but of course I'm not a big Dragon Age fan. I did enjoy Inquisition, but I mean I enjoyed the Fable. I thought Fable should probably be in the top 30. Fable 2, I should say.
What do you guys think about the MMOs on the list? I know there's. I mean, obviously, I guess they're RPGs, right? But I mean, do you think that? Because, for example, like Destiny, for example, mostly online. Do you think that they should have scaled back on MMOs a little bit, or do you think like in another 5 years you're going to see even more MMOs on this list?
I mean, I don't think being an MMO should matter. Or is it good or isn't? Should be.
Sure.
That would be my argument. Like,
okay.
I don't care what kind of RPG you are, as long as you are one. Again, Destiny isn't one, but it isn't enough of one. Let's put it that way. It's a shooter.
I think Warcraft being number 6 on the list is surprising.
Really?
Well, that was what I was saying. I was a little bit surprised that it was that high.
No, I'm surprised it's not
higher.
At least top
higher.
Higher, yeah. Especially, I mean, you got
one beat it. Witcher 3, Mass Effect
2.
2, which again should have been 3. Chrono Trigger,
FF6.
I mean, yeah.
6 and,
again, if you drop Skyrim, then it cracks the top 5, right? So.
Yeah. But
so really, we still just have issue with the Skyrim thing.
Well, it seems like it. Yeah.
We keep coming back to that.
I just think it's weird to see, and this is, and again, I guess I'm going back to the longevity thing. I think it's interesting. Like if you started the list at 1 and you said, "Oh, there's Elder Scrolls, crazy looking game and all this stuff," and then you flip over and the next 2 is Final Fantasy VI and Chrono Trigger. And I think that you don't see that a lot in genres of games. Like when you look at first person shooters, you don't see such kind of a disparity between I guess eras of games. And I think that's one thing that I really enjoyed with this RPG list was, there's so many games that crosses so many eras, and it's just so cool to see, Skyrim at 1, even whether we disagree with it or not, and then Final Fantasy VI at 2. Like it just shows how deep this genre of games are. And really, it's because they make a funny thing at the end. They put I think it's D&D, and just to show how how deep or how I guess not just video games but RPGs in general, and how deep that history is. I just thought it was kind of a cool little, and we talk about it's kind of a cool little journey through time, of what these games look like and what they meant and what they added through the years. I think it's a cool little. Whether we agree with where they rank or not, it's just cool to look at all these games and be like, man, we kind of forget how deep and the RPG genre is.
And I don't know if you guys saw it, but on the last page of the magazine, they kind of go over the numbers for their list.
Mm-hmm.
So they have like games by decade. So 1980s, they've got 5. 1990s, 28. 2010s, 29. Well, the 2000s, 38. So it kind of gives you the range of how many games from each era they're putting in the list, and that kind of goes to your point as to how broad the genre is.
We just think like 1980, there was 5 of them. I mean, and then you look at 10 years from then, there's like they more than double, they like triple their their numbers. It just shows how successful it is. I think it's weird that in 2010, I think that's
of the industry as a whole growing too.
That's true. I do think it is interesting when you go to 2000 to 2010. I think that's when you start seeing the JRPG kind of drop down a little bit, especially in the West. There's some other thing like GTA comes out. There's some other things that kind of make it more of a Western type game, but I guess that's where that kind of drop off goes too. But
hey, I remembered another game that's not even on this list that I would have liked to have seen is Kingdoms of Amalur, The Reckoning, or something like that.
I haven't played that one.
Yeah, most people haven't. It's fine. It's the Kurt Schilling game.
Oh, okay.
But I really, really liked that game. I thought
picture Kurt Schilling.
Yeah.
That's the one he went bankrupt and what we're on.
Bankrupt making, yes. I thought someone else in here played it, but I guess not. But I really liked that. And I've got like 3 kind of like rapid fire questions if you guys want those, then I won't have to go because my computer's going to die.
Okay.
The fans have been running like nonstop for 2 hours now, so it's running out of juice. So how many of these have you guys beaten, Daniel?
Beaten? Oh
yes.
Gosh, I counted how many I played.
Oh, well, how many have you played? We'll do played, and then everybody count how many you've beaten.
I mean, I've played enough of these games to be able to have an opinion on them. I'd say it's between 25 and 30.
Oh, you didn't count? Come on, man.
I did, but I lost count because we got started on the podcast. So.
Okay. I wrote them down as I went, so I wrote in my magazine. That's all right. Aaron?
Well, let's see.
Joe?
I didn't really think about counting how many I played.
I mean, as far as starting them, I mean, I know I play Final Fantasy VI, Castlevania Symphony of the Night. I've started the other day. Dawn, obviously,
He's like, I own 100 of these, so I just played them.
No, I do.
I played the opening screen real quick so I could say I could have a high number.
It's embarrassing. I mean, it really is. I'm an embarrassment to this podcast. Now, obviously, some of the bigger ones, I'm 40 hours into Persona 4. I totally see why it's on the list. Of course, Final Fantasy 7 is probably the one game I put in the most hours with. But Final Fantasy 6, I'm about halfway through. So I played enough of them to know. But it definitely, I mean, for me personally, I mean, looking at this list, I own like the majority of these. So I'm definitely going to start playing them at some point in my life when I'm like retired and 80 years old. But yeah, I haven't beat a lot of these, if any of them, to be quite honest. Final Fantasy 7, I think, is the only one. Wow. Oh, it's Zelda. I'm sorry, Zelda.
Okay. Good job.
Hey, so baby.
Joe, you don't have a guess?
I'm at 16 right now.
16. Okay, he's counting. While he's counting, I'll give my number for beaten for played at 26. I believe was where I finished out. Yeah, 26.
At beat or played or just beat?
Beat. Played. I keep getting that wrong. I played 26 of them. I beat 11 of them. So not a great percentage there. If it was basketball, that would be a pretty good percentage, but or baseball, it'd be a great percentage. But
I also think that let's just be quite honest. I mean, when you play an RPG, we already touched on it with Persona. That's a lot. That's a big time dump, and you have to be prepared. Somebody was talking about that. I read a really good article about it, and he's like, it's actually an article that the way that he decided to play RPGs was that he had this big spreadsheet, and when he had the spreadsheet, he would say, "Hey, I played Chrono Trigger for 30 minutes. Here's where I'm at." And then he would do the next game. So like, well, maybe I won't play this game. And he said, I put so many hours in. This is where I left off, and this is what I have to do. Because a lot of times with RPGs, you put 30 hours in, you don't play for a week, and you forget what the heck you're doing. So it is a big time dump. And in the article he talked about, he said you have to have a mindset that you're going to be playing the same game for 30 hours or 40 hours or 50 hours. He said if you don't have that mindset, you're not going to finish that game. And then when you come back, you're probably going to have to start over. So I think for me, I do have a hard time. Like, for example, Andrew, you was completely right. It took 10 hours for me to get into Persona, right on the dot. Like, it took a good amount of hours before. And 10 hours in a game is a lot. Like, think about that. Like, there's games you can beat in 10 hours. And with this one, it's just now starting up. I think for me, it's a mental block of, do I want to start this now? Like, am I going to have time to come back to it tomorrow or the next day or, the next day to be able to know where I'm at without backtracking too much? And I think that's me personally. That's why I don't I love these RPGs. I know a lot about these RPGs. I know why they're on the list. I read articles about them. But for me, it's just I have to. And usually once I get over that mental block, like with Persona, I'm good to go. And ready to go. But I think it is a mental type of thing to have to be able to be like, I have to be prepared to dump this many hours into this.
Yeah,
okay,
I got you. Joe, what's your number?
40.
You played 40 of them?
That's impressive.
It's impressive.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
And I mean, I could probably take 5 or 6 out because I wouldn't say that I'd beat them because I wouldn't say they're unbeatable, but they keep going.
I counted as having beaten Destiny, even though it kind of just keeps going as well. So.
And I mean, like Skyrim and Oblivion.
Well, I would count those as just main quest. If you beat the main
that's
quest.
True. I beat the main quest lines in those. World of Warcraft. I mean, it's an ongoing. I haven't even played the new expansion though.
I would say if you got 80 hours in World of Warcraft, then you could say you.
I would say those games are like would you count those games if you got to level cap? Was that how you would beat those games, or do you have? I've never played MMO, so I don't know.
I mean, a lot of times the game really starts at the post level cap. So
okay, gotcha.
That's how Destiny was anyway. Like you hit level 40 and then you started playing.
There you go.
It's same as World of Warcraft. I mean, back when vanilla was vanilla, if you hit 60, you was starting trying to get your epics, and then that's when the real game started. But
like for Destiny, my beat state for Destiny was the platinum. But you could also say it had a main story, so you could say that. You could say it was beating the raid. The most difficult task, other than the PvP stuff, would be Flawless Raider, which I also got in the hardest raid to get Flawless Raider, so that was cool. Flawless Raider is no one in your fire team can die through the entire raid. That was probably the most fun I had playing that game. Is there 5 strangers? But anyway,
is there a platinum for like a flawed raider that I can get? Is there a platinum for that?
No, but I could. If you had actually ever played Destiny, I could have drug your butt through a flawless raider run. Like,
well, that should be your own.
Could have done that for you, but you wouldn't.
It should pop up and be like, you just drug Aaron's butt platinum.
Tried to convince you several times to.
It should say
Destiny.
like you cured Aaron's butt itch. You dragged Aaron through a raid.
Yeah.
Andrew said that if I put 80 hours into Warcraft, I would hate to see how many hours I have.
Well, you can. There's actually a website called Wasted on Destiny, and you can just go onto it and type in your name, and it'll tell you how much time you spent on it.
I mean, you can go in each character on Warcraft and tap in /play.
Oh, it'll tell you.
Like
okay.
And it will tell you. But I mean, Aaron would tell you that he's numerous times I would be up there like naked in my chair playing World of Warcraft because I just got out of the shower and I wouldn't want to.
Well, I didn't know about the nakedness. There were some times we used wearing some very short shorts with no shirt on when I would walk in the dead of summer. So
I had 1,200 hours.
That may be why I hate World of Warcraft. I just have this, terrible, I can't get by it. So.
No, you probably hate World of Warcraft.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, you probably hate World of Warcraft because it killed that computer that we shared.
Oh, man, I had an E-machine that had no business running anything other than, like, Word. And so he would go in there and play World of Warcraft, and it would be like molasses. I don't even know how he played it. It's terrible. You basically blew my computer up. But
I wanted to play a Warlock when I first started, and it took me like 10 minutes to cast Demon Skin, which is like the most basic. It's like one of the first spells you get. And it took me 10 minutes. It was lagging so bad. So that's how I started my rogue.
Andrew, did you have any more questions before you jump off?
No. I was going to say how many do you own, but that's probably not really an interesting question for anybody. But you, but you don't have The World Ends With You, and I do. So in your face.
I don't have a DS, so.
Let me throw one out there, Andrew, while you're still on.
Okay.
I'd like to know one game off this list that you've never played but you really want to.
Secret of Mana.
That's a good
or
pick.
Mana or whatever.
Yeah.
And it sounds like I might get to on Switch here in the next year or so. So I'm really excited about the possibility of that. And I'm thinking one of the reasons they're thinking about doing that is because they've they're using those two Joy-Cons as a reason to bring local multiplayer back to games. And I'm pretty excited about that. Couch co-op has been something that's been missing, and I understand it's because online is more convenient in a lot of ways. But I'm kind of excited about the idea that we're getting some couch co-op back. That was one of my big takeaways from E3 that I didn't mention the other night in the podcast that hasn't released yet.
I mentioned it.
Oh, did you mention it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I kind of like that we're seeing a comeback for couch co-op. And yeah, it's not going to be a big feature, but just that Nintendo's like, well, we have these two controllers attached to this thing. We might as well put in a mode.
Sure. Well, that was one of the first really good games to be able to use the multi-tap on the Super Nintendo. We could play all four.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the few to actually do that. And the crazy thing about it is the two that didn't get released over here, as good as Secret of Mana apparently is, the other two were better from what I understand. So, and I'm always big on. I love when they import those things over because I follow this guy on Twitter called the SNES Drunk, and he does a lot of like RPGs that never made it over here. And there's like hundreds of RPGs that I think there was 100 RPGs on the Super Nintendo alone that never got over here. A lot of those games were better, and so I always like it when they try to localize that stuff and get it over here. I think it's pretty neat.
I have a hard time believing they're better when people say that. Like maybe they are. They may very well be. But when people say that, I just have a hard time. It's kind of like Ricky Rubio. Like, oh man, wait till you see Ricky Rubio. It's just like these urban legends out there.
Sure.
Hey, there's no urban legends. Go watch him play when he was in Spain.
Yeah, but it's like a grainy YouTube video against 8th graders. Like, what's it matter? Speaking of, did you guys see LeBron dunking on his kids' friends at his kid's birthday party today? That was awesome.
I'll have to check it out.
He's like he's beaming them with water balloons, all kinds of stuff. It is so fun. But anyway, I'll let you guys get back to your list. I have 5% left, so I want to get off here so I can give a formal goodbye rather than a weird one. So
yeah, Ricky Rubio was playing against grown man in Spain when he was a teenager. Get out of here.
Hey, I like the T-Wolves, man. It's all right.
I forgive
take care, Andrew.
See you, Andrew.
See you, Andrew. Now, to answer your question, Daniel, I hope I say this right. Panzer Dragoon.
Panzer
Did I
Dragoon.
say that?
That's a Sega game, isn't it?
It is a Sega game.
It's a Saturn game. I guess, we didn't have a Saturn really growing up, so we missed a lot of those games.
Well, that game got it didn't get released everywhere because that was near the tail end of the Saturn. It's super expensive, so if you find it at a yard sale for like $1, you might as well pick it up because you're going to make some money off of it.
I think there was another Sega game on here too.
There was one of the Fantasy Stars was on here. I can't remember which one. I think it was maybe Fantasy Star 4, but there really wasn't a lot of Sega games on here. So it's weird that like a Saturn game made it versus something like a Shining Force or something like that didn't make it. But I'd like to play that one too. I heard that game was super, super awesome.
I just looked. There's only one Tails game on this list.
Yeah.
Symphonia.
Yeah, but you would think as storied as that series is, there's only one game from that list series.
Is it up until like the one for the PS4? Maybe aren't they pretty much the same, like mechanical wise?
I think so. I don't know. I've enjoyed the ones I've played.
Yeah, I have too. I think it's a neat game. So
here we go. Here's an old school one for you. Number 76, Ultima 4. Quest of the Avatar. Platforms: Nintendo or NES, Master System, PC, Amiga, Apple II, Atari 800, Atari ST, and Commodore 64.
That's the very definition of multi-platform game.
I bet some of these like Call of Duty bros were like, "Whoa, what are those things, man? I ain't never heard of those before."
Yeah, I agree, Daniel. I think this is a good list.
What about you? You didn't tell me what do you think?
Oh, it has to be Chrono Trigger, and I have it. It's sitting right here. I mean, and it's one of those games I continue to hear about, and just how many platforms they brought it back for, and all that stuff as far as what Nintendo's done with it. But I definitely want to, and I'm a big Dragon Ball Z fan, so obviously the guy that did Dragon Ball Z did all the character designs and everything else to go with it. So it's just something. I'm looking at it now and it looks awesome, and I should have already played it. But that's probably the one that I played enough Final Fantasy VI to know, hey, that's an awesome game. But I've never even scratched Chrono Trigger. So
mine would be number 92, Tactics Ogre. Which I actually own, but I've never really played. It was it was the game that was the inspiration for Final Fantasy Tactics, which is still is the benchmark for tactics games even now. So I would really love to play that game. It was re-released for PSP, and I've got it, just haven't played it. I really want to play that sometime this year. Force myself to play it.
I think you all should go back and play Baldur's Gate.
I've heard good things about it. I don't know. I don't know. Speaking of Tactics Ogre, it's actually one of the few Super Nintendo games I like that I would like to have a hard copy of. Was the March of the Black Queen, which was one of the first ones to come out on the Super Nintendo. That one looks really cool, kind of the same kind of vein as that one. But the Tactics Ogre series has had a lot of entries. That's where I think it's weird that, like Andrew said, like Ys didn't make it. Like, there's so many Ys games you would think that at some point, at least the first one, because it was one of the very first like CD-based RPGs and had, really good music to it, and the gameplay was a little bit different. And I used to own it. I actually sold it. I used to own it on an actual TurboGrafx, a PC engine. But I'm kind of surprised that none of those games made this list. So
let me ask you this: since we're questioning the criteria of this, like for some people, they may be asking like, why wouldn't you consider like a Red Dead Redemption or a Last of Us as an RPG?
I don't think there's enough RPG elements in those. To be 100% honest, like you can upgrade your weapons and stuff, but I don't think there's enough. I don't think there's enough in there. Of course, the biggest thing that was left off is Mega Man Legends. So, if you're, obviously they wanted to wait, and they didn't want to put all the rest of the list down because they would have to put it number one. But I think Mega Man Legends, I guess you could call it an RPG, but I don't know about that either. All right, guys, is there anything else you want to say about the list before we kind of?
I got one more question. It'll be the good one to end on, and we didn't mention it, but it is, what is your personal number one? I mean, what's your personal number one? What's the best game? What's the best RPG? Whether it's on this list or not, what's the best RPG of all time?
Obviously, I haven't played a lot of these, so I'm just going to go with one that I have played. Final Fantasy VII by far. And I'm not, listen, out of the ones that I've played, that's the one that I have the best memories of. That's the one that I remember, staying up late nights trying to get the ultimate weapons and really getting into it. And to be quite honest, I really like the story. I really like the characters. I thought it was a really cool. It was one of the, especially from what I knew about the Final Fantasy series before, where it was like the mages and the knights and stuff like that. To have this kind of techno punk kind of noir, fantasy type feel to it. I just really liked everything about that game. And obviously for the time, we talked about, the graphics and whatnot, but that was my first RPG and it was a heck of a one to start with. But I always thought that the cool thing about that game was I always felt it was accessible. Like it did a good job of explaining things and making things make sense, and or you even discovering, oh, okay, well, that's why I'm not doing this because I don't have this material combined with this one, or if I combine this material with this one, it causes my MP go up but my HP goes down. So it was one of those things where I thought it did a really good job of introducing a lot of the RPG mechanics while adding to it and making it pretty accessible to play. And I don't know if that was a conscious design when they was developing the game, but I never really had a problem figuring out things to do or how to do. And then once, like I said, the story was that we played at my cousin's, and I didn't know it couldn't save. So, one afternoon, I almost got through the whole disc, like a disc one, because he was off. He had a track meet or something, and we were there, and I played almost the whole disc, first disc. And as soon as I got home, I bought it. And that's when it really opened up. Like, there's so many other things that, I discovered that you could do. So, Joe, what about you, man?
Oh, that's a tough question. I think the vanilla World of Warcraft will always hold a very special place in my heart. And then probably, I just really enjoy the story of Fable. I really liked Fable.
The original Fable?
The original Fable. And overall, with the Jack of Blades has always just stuck out with me as one of the best villains in a video game, to a point. So I'm gonna go with Fable, and even the Fable series, and then I can throw probably out Kingdom Hearts, the Kingdom Hearts series.
The first one was really good. Yeah, it was something truly different, I thought, as far as how they implemented that. Danny, what about you, man?
It's Final Fantasy VI. It's a near perfect game. They had lots of moments that were so ahead of their time. Some of the storytelling aspects were ahead of their time. The number of characters that you could play with, just the way I guess the battle system was pretty standard, but the story, the characters, the actual, I don't know how to explain it. It's just it was amazing that they were able to do that on the Super Nintendo. And you know what, Aaron? It still holds up today.
Darn dude.
No, but it's nearly perfect, And I've never played Skyrim, so I can't really knock Skyrim being put first. But if it was me, Final Fantasy VI is the best RPG ever.
I want to echo that because, like I said, I played about halfway through. I'm actually, I don't know if I'm halfway through, but I'm to the Opera House in that one.
Mm-hmm.
And we talk about these games like being long, but those Super Nintendo RPGs are usually 20 to 30 hours if you play it straight through. Now you can go back and get some stuff and get different endings and stuff, but I feel like I'm about halfway through if you just want to play through it and just say that you played and beat it. I want to echo. Like, I think I say probably the first 6 hours, there's something that happens in that game that just wrenches your heart. And it's just, it rips your heart out of your chest. And that character becomes probably is probably my favorite character in the game so far. Because of just his storyline. You kind of want to see him succeed and after what happens to him, you want him to be a whole character again. But just, it's almost a little bit overwhelming with all the characters you can do. Because you want to play them all, but you got to focus in on some different ones. They all play differently. Not to spoil, but you find this kid out in the wild, and I think he's just a great character to play. Like, he's just the stuff he does and how different his attacks are and everything else. It's just a fun little character to play. But yeah, I want to echo those sentiments. I can see why, it's either rotating or with Chrono Trigger as a number one, or definitely in the top three usually, as far as these RPGs. But and I'm with you, Daniel. Like how they used the Mode 7 graphics and how they did a lot of different things on that. Just that board. It's it's amazing what they've done with that. And people sentiment. They say Final Fantasy 2 is really good, but just Final Fantasy 6 kind of took the genre in a completely different direction. So yeah, I agree. From what I played of it, it's an amazing, as far as narrative wise, gameplay wise. It's a complete package.
Was 8 on the list?
No,
I think it was 10, 6, 7, 1, and 4. I think was the ones that were on the list.
Tactics.
And Tactics, yeah.
See, I remember playing. I've not beat all of 7, but my first memories of 7 is watching you play it, because I had the TV in my room and the PlayStation in my room, and you would stay up. I was trying to go to bed, and you'd be playing it. But I think my first Final Fantasy game was probably 10.
Mm-hmm. I hated 10. And I know I should go back and play it. People say I should go back and play it now because there are things in 10 that I like now that I didn't like with 10, but I didn't. Maybe it was the characters too. I thought maybe the characters were just a little bit odd for me. I don't know. It's just never really connected with me, like 7 or 6 or something like that. So now you played the heck out of 10. I remember you playing the heck out of 10. So, and I know a lot of people that has. I think Jared played a lot of 10. Jared will probably throw out Final Fantasy 12. I mean, I'm speaking for him, but he played a lot of Final Fantasy 12 when it was first released. I know it's about to get re-released on the PS4, but Daniel, there was one that you talked about, and we'll end here just quickly, but one that I'm trying to think of another RPG to start on a modern console, and Valkyria Chronicles. Is that how you say it?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it's Valkyria or Valkyria, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It made the list. I can't remember what number it was on, but that game is definitely one that I feel like I'll start this year, and it's neat. I mean, from what
it is a blast. Yeah. It is a blast. You would really enjoy it. It's a very easy to pick up and play.
Hear me?
Do what?
He'll start it, but won't finish it.
I'll finish it, baby. Listen, you guys. One of these days, you guys are going to keep down on me on like episode, 2000 or whatever this podcast went up. And I'll just go on a run, and I'll beat like 15, 16, 17 of these games just like in a week.
We'll probably all be dead and gone when that happens.
Probably. But yeah. So you guys got anything else to say about the list? I know this is running a little bit long, but it's definitely something that is I'm sure, we'll always talk about RPGs, but this list definitely, definitely piqued our interest and made for some good conversations about it. So you guys got anything else to say?
Yeah, go out there and play some.
Yeah, everybody,
go play some. I'm going to go play some RPGs. See y'all later.
Yeah, me too. I'm out.
On us.
All right. Well, that's been episode number 64, number 34 of the Monsters of Geek podcast. I'm Aaron Chief Aaron for Joe, Daniel, and Andrew and Jared. We are out.